zooming in these cars. Ha ha, got my own base, I'm booming, I'm bunking. Been getting it since the 90s. Pull up in the hood, hopping out, kissing babies. Know I had the money, I'ma get me a Mercedes, and I put that on the milk, kinda like a...
All right, this is basketball history here. You know, this man here was a part of something that, when we talk about just the history of basketball, NC State, 1983. Obviously, with it being March Madness, you were a part of that history. Can you talk about just that moment now looking years later and just the impact that it did bring along after the fact?
Well, I have to say that year was a part of what kind of started March Madness. I think Larry Bird and Magic probably got it going, but NC State did something very incredible to end up in the finals with an amazing Houston team with Clyde Drexler and Akeem Olajuwon. Under the helm of a great coach like Jimmy Valvano, he just put a bunch of guys together that really believed they could win. It was just one of the, that was over 40 years ago.
Yeah.
And people are you're still talking about it.
Oh,
so
yeah.
It must have meant something.
It
But
does.
it's great to be a part of that. And now, like you said, as March Madness gets underway, it's always good to look back on that and know that you were part of it.
I love it. So obviously, you know, if I ask anybody about Utah basketball, the Utah Jazz, you're the guy that we got to ask, right? So I ask every all-timer, just any player in general, if you did a Mount Rushmore for Utah Jazz, 4 on the mountaintop, and you can throw the coach in there if you want to, obviously, or if you want to throw just 4 players. Who are the 4 players that will represent Utah Jazz in the Mount Rushmore?
The Mount Rushmore?
Yeah.
Well, you have to go with John Stockton and Karl Malone.
Yes.
I'm going to throw Adrian Dantley in there. Yeah, because AD was unstoppable as a small forward, an undersized small forward. That one thing he deserved is his number up in the rafters way before it went up, but they finally got it up there. And I got to go with Jerry Sloan. And look, he was the longevity of the Jazz, right along with Carl and John. And, we didn't get a championship, but Carl and John and Jerry Sloan are really the foundation of what the Utah Jazz were built on, and Adrian Dantley is that other piece.
I love it. A few more questions, man. So go back before NC State, go back before high school. Growing up, for you, who were some of your favorite basketball players?
I'm pretty interesting because, I got cut twice in junior high, so I didn't really start. I was 6'5" in the 7th grade, and I was 6'7" in the 8th grade, got cut from the team. But what started me interested in basketball was I watched my first basketball game, and my dad was sitting there watching, and I saw one guy out there. He had a big old fro like this.
Sounds like the doctor.
It was Dr. J. Dr. J was the catalyst of me finding the passion for basketball because I knew I wanted to be like him. And the full circle moment was when I made it to the NBA, I'm out on the court getting ready to guard the great Dr. J.
Wow. I think a lot of times when we talk about the history of basketball, the 80s doesn't really get talked about enough. A guy like Alex English, for instance, who is the all-time leading scorer of the 80s, didn't make that 75 anniversary scene, which I thought was unreal. Just talk about 80s basketball and the emergence of, obviously, Larry Bird and Magic, and then you had this young guy in Chicago come along named Michael Jordan, and just talk about the competition. Even some of the older guys that were still hanging on, like the Dr. J's who won a championship during that time. George Gervin was still around. Can you talk about that, you as a player having to face those guys?
Well, the George Gervins and the Dr. J's and the Bill Waltons, those guys were they were trendsetters, right? Dr. J was way ahead of his time. You talk about guys like Bill Walton and Kareem who did great in college, and I think that was a big key. A lot of these guys went to college, right, and they established rivalries there.
Yep.
And they took those rivalries right into the NBA. It's different nowadays. I think Larry Bird and Magic Johnson were part of that crew that kind of started, and then when you talk about passing the torch, we know about the Dream Team and Michael Jordan's emergence as a new sheriff in town, right? And the game was different, right? And people say, well, was it better? Was it worse? No, it was just different. Look, we had our era. It's a great era now. The game is much faster. you can't play defense like you used to play. We used to put wood on guys, right? And
Yeah.
you just play on.
Yeah.
You look at that Detroit team, right? And how they used to just pound people, and that's how they won championships.
Yeah.
But you look at how the game has evolved now, and guys like Steph who changed the game from the three-point line, and LeBron James, playing till he's darn near 45, right? I mean,
That's what a dream for everybody.
I know. So it's still a great game, but I loved my era because I was a small forward at 6'11", and I had to guard guys.
You're a center today.
Yeah, I know, man. But I had to guard, some of the best small forwards in the league, like Larry Bird, like the Mark Aguirres
Dominique.
of the world, the Dominique Wilkinses. So, but we established those. There was no transfer portal back then, right? So you were in you were in college, and you were taking all that knowledge and that play from college into the NBA, and yeah, it was a great era, but the game is still great.
I love it. Last question. Thurl Bailey does his all-time starting five, and you have to be in the starting five. No teammates. If you could build the perfect team and you're part of the team, you're one of the five in the starting five. What the other four
and
guys?
I can use anybody
from any era. Anybody from any era. How's your five look? And you're one of the five.
I'm one of the five. Well, first of all, realistically, if I got to be one of the five, I'm gonna put. Gosh, man, that's a hard one. No teammates. I'm gonna put Kevin Durant in there.
Okay. He's gonna love that.
Yeah, I gotta put LeBron James in there. There's no question about it. I'm gonna put Nikola Jokic.
Oh,
the
wow.
Throwback big.
Okay.
Right? The guy you run your offense through.
And one more.
Oh, I got one more?
Yeah, you got you, KD, Braun, and Jokic.
Well, the three-point shot is so important, and the best that ever had it, Steph Curry.
Wow. See, this is what I'm talking about. This Thurl respects the game of the guys today, and he also gives homage to the past. Thurl, I appreciate your time.
All right, bro.
Thank you so much, brother. I appreciate it so much.
Booming.